I found out my father paid my boyfriend to leave me. The envelope was tucked between my father's leather-bound investment portfolios like it belonged there. White. Crisp. With payment confirmation, Marcus Williams, typed across the front in that sterile corporate font my father's law firm used for everything. I wasn't supposed to be in his study. I was supposed to be upstairs helping Mom plan the seating chart for his 60th birthday party next weekend, arguing about whether Aunt Patricia should sit near Uncle Robert after their divorce. Instead, I was here looking for the good stapler because mine had broken while assembling invitation stuffers, and Dad always kept the expensive office supplies locked away in his mahogany fortress. Marcus Williams. My Marcus. The man who'd broken up with me 6 months ago with tears in his eyes, saying he couldn't do this anymore and that we wanted different things. The man I'd loved for 2 years, who knew exactly how I liked my coffee and never once made me feel stupid for majoring in art instead of business like Dad wanted. My hands shook as I opened the envelope. Payment agreement, confidential. Date, March 15, 2024. Amount, $50,000. Recipient, Marcus Williams. Reason, termination of relationship with Alexandra Hartford. Asterisk terms, complete cessation of contact. Relocation outside of Chicago metropolitan area within 30 days. No disclosure of this arrangement to Alexandra or any third party asterisk. The signature line at the bottom was filled in with my father's aggressive scrawl. The same signature that used to make me feel safe on permission slips and birthday cards. I read it 3 times before the words actually sank in. $50,000. The exact amount Marcus had said his mom needed for her cancer treatments, the treatments his family couldn't afford, the reason he'd been working double shifts at the restaurant and looked exhausted every time I saw him those last few weeks. My father had bought my boyfriend. Like a house. Like a car. Like another piece of property to acquire and dispose of when it no longer served his purposes. The date was March 15th. Marcus broke up with me on March 18th. 3 days after signing this devil's contract with my father. I thought about that night, how Marcus had seemed different when he picked me up for what I thought was just another dinner date. How he kept checking his phone. How he'd suddenly started talking about how I deserved someone better, someone from my world. I thought he was having a quarter-life crisis. I thought maybe he was intimidated by Dad's money, the way he always got quiet during family dinners at our Winnetka house. I never thought my father had cornered him like a predator. Alexandra? Mom's voice drifted down from upstairs. Did you find that stapler, sweetheart? Just a minute. I called back, my voice surprisingly steady. I took a photo of the document with my phone, then another, then a third to make sure it was clear. My finger hovered over Marcus's name in my contacts, still there after 6 months because I'd been too heartbroken to delete it. Instead, I closed the envelope and placed it back exactly where I'd found it, between the quarterly reports and the portfolio statements. Dad would never know I'd seen it. But next Saturday, at his big birthday celebration, with all 60 members of our extended family watching him blow out his candles and give his traditional speech about family being everything, that's when everyone else would know exactly what kind of man Richard Hartford really was. The photo on my phone screen felt like evidence of a crime, which I suppose it was. Character assassination. Emotional manipulation. The systematic destruction of his daughter's happiness for the low price of 50 grand. I made it through dinner that night by cutting my salmon into precise squares and nodding at appropriate intervals while Dad talked about the partnership track at his firm. Mom mentioned the birthday party RSVPs. Apparently we were up to 73 guests now that cousin Jenny was bringing her new fiancé. It'll be quite the celebration, Dad said, reaching over to squeeze my hand. Having my family all together. Nothing makes me happier, sweetheart. I smiled and squeezed back, wondering if his hand had trembled when he'd signed that check to Marcus. If he'd felt even a moment of guilt before deciding my happiness was worth exactly $50,000. After dinner, I locked myself in my childhood bedroom, the one I'd moved back into after the breakup because I couldn't afford the Lincoln Park apartment Marcus and I had been planning to get together. The irony wasn't lost on me now. My father had orchestrated my heartbreak, then swooped in to catch me when I fell, playing the role of supportive dad while I cried into the Laura Ashley pillows he'd bought me in high school. I opened my laptop and started digging. Marcus Williams wasn't hard to find on social media, even though he blocked me on everything after the breakup. A mutual friend's Instagram story from last month showed him at what looked like a housewarming party in Portland. Portland, definitely outside the Chicago metropolitan area, just like the contract specified. The apartment in the background looked nice. Really nice. Floor-to-ceiling windows, exposed brick, the kind of place that cost serious money even in Oregon. I screenshotted everything. His LinkedIn was public. Apparently he'd started his own graphic design business in April, just 1 month after signing Dad's contract. The company website showed a professional headshot of Marcus smiling confidently, no longer the exhausted, overworked server I'd watched slowly crumble under financial pressure. I found the incorporation documents through Oregon's business registry. Williams Design Studio, LLC. Founded April 2nd with an initial investment of $47,000. My stomach lurched. He'd used Dad's blood money to start his dream business. The business we used to talk about late at night, when he'd sketch logo ideas on napkins and I'd help him brainstorm company names. The future we'd planned together, funded by my father's desire to remove him from my life. But the worst part, the part that made me actually nauseous, was the company's mission statement on the website. Williams Design Studio believes everyone deserves to tell their authentic story, free from outside interference or manipulation. The fucking audacity. I was still staring at my screen when my phone buzzed with a text from my best friend Jenna. Coffee tomorrow? You seem off lately. Off. Right. Because discovering your father is a puppet master and your ex-boyfriend is a sellout tends to affect one's mood. Instead of responding to Jenna, I opened a new browser tab and searched for private investigators in Chicago. If Dad wanted to play games with evidence and contracts, I'd play too. But I needed more than just that one payment confirmation. I needed to know if Marcus was the first, or if my father had been curating my dating life longer than I'd realized. The PI's website promised discreet investigation services for sensitive family matters. Perfect. I filled out the contact form, uploaded the photo of Dad's contract, and hit send before I could change my mind. Game on, Richard Hartford. The private investigator's office smelled like stale coffee and broken dreams. Janet Morrison looked exactly like I'd imagined, mid-50s, sensible shoes, the kind of woman who'd seen every flavor of family dysfunction Chicago had to offer. She slid a manila folder across her desk with the practiced efficiency of someone who delivered bad news for a living. Your instincts were right, she said simply. I'd hired her 3 days ago. 3 days of pretending everything was normal while Mom fussed over catering details and Dad practiced his birthday speech in front of the bathroom mirror. 3 days of smiling and nodding while my world quietly imploded in the background. The folder was thick. Too thick. Marcus Williams wasn't the first, Janet continued, opening to the first page. I found records going back 5 years. Your father's been selective about your romantic interests. The first document showed a payment to someone named David Chin. $10,000. Dated 2 months after I graduated college, right around the time my coworker David had suddenly transferred to the San Francisco office and stopped returning my calls. 10 grand for David, I whispered, running my finger over the payment stub. That relationship barely lasted 3 months. Your father's rates apparently increased with the seriousness of the threat, Janet said dryly. Keep reading. Tommy Morrison from my senior year of college, $15,000 to pursue opportunities in Europe. I remembered how crushed I'd been when he'd announced his sudden study abroad extension, how he'd insisted it wasn't about us even as he avoided eye contact. Jake Rodriguez, the teacher I'd dated when I was 22, $25,000, plus a glowing recommendation letter that had landed him a principal position in Denver. For expanded career growth and geographic diversification, according to the payment memo. And then Marcus. $50,000. The biggest payout yet. Why Marcus? I asked. What made him worth 50 grand when the others were pocket change? Janet leaned back in her chair. 2 years is the longest relationship I found in your father's intervention history. Plus, there's this. She flipped to a page I recognized, a printout of Marcus's Instagram from last Christmas. The photo of us at the Hartford's annual holiday party, him in the suit I'd helped him pick out, looking happy and confident next to our massive tree. Someone had circled the comments in red ink. Beautiful couple, from Aunt Patricia. When's the wedding? From my cousin Sarah. Welcome to the family, from Uncle James. In the margin, someone had handwritten unacceptable in my father's distinctive scrawl. I think Marcus was getting too comfortable, Janet said quietly. Your family was accepting him. That made him dangerous in your father's eyes. My hands were shaking again. I thought about that Christmas party, how proud I'd felt introducing Marcus to everyone, how Dad had even complimented his knowledge of wine over dinner. It had all been an act. While I was falling deeper in love, Dad was calculating the exact dollar amount it would take to destroy my happiness. There's more, Janet said, flipping to the back of the folder. I tracked down David Chen in San Francisco. He's willing to talk. She handed me a phone number written on her business card. He's been carrying guilt about this for years. Apparently your father didn't just offer money, he made it clear that declining wasn't really an option. Something about David's family's immigration status and your father's connections at ICE. The room tilted slightly. It wasn't just bribery. It was extortion. Jesus Christ, I breathed. Your father is thorough, Janet said. But he made one mistake. He kept records of everything. Man like that, probably habits from his law practice. Documenting every transaction, every communication. She tapped the folder. This is enough to destroy him, Alexandra. Question is, how far are you willing to go? I thought about Marcus in Portland, building his dream business with my father's money. About David, Tommy, and Jake, all scattered across the country like casualties of Dad's personal war against my autonomy. Saturday's birthday party was in 3 days. All the way, I said. I spent Thursday night in my childhood bedroom, surrounded by printouts from Janet's folder like some deranged detective. Every payment stub, every contract, every piece of evidence of my father's systematic dismantling of my love life spread across my pink comforter like a paper graveyard. The birthday party was in 2 days. Mom had been buzzing around the house all week, triple-checking flower arrangements and obsessing over whether we'd ordered enough champagne for 73 guests. She'd poked her head in earlier to ask if I wanted to wear the pearl necklace Grandma Hartford had left me, for the family photos, sweetheart, completely oblivious that her husband had been playing puppet master with our daughter's heart for half a decade. I picked up David Chen's number for the 5th time, then finally dialed before I could lose my nerve. He answered on the 2nd ring. Hello? David? This is Alexander Hartford. Janet Morrison gave me your number. Silence. Then, oh God. Alex. I've been wondering when this day would come. His voice was exactly the same, that slight accent he'd been self-conscious about back when we'd grab lunch in the break room at Morrison and Associates marketing firm. Before he'd suddenly announced his transfer to San Francisco and avoided me for his last 2 weeks in Chicago. You knew I'd find out eventually? I hoped you would, he said quietly. What your father did. Alex, I'm so sorry. I should have told you the truth, should have fought harder, but he. David's voice cracked. He knew things. About my family. My parents' visa status, my sister's work permit application. He made it very clear that refusing his offer would have consequences beyond just losing a girlfriend. My stomach churned. What exactly did he say? That immigration law was tricky, and sometimes people with pending applications found themselves facing unexpected scrutiny. That he had friends at ICE who were very thorough in their reviews. David let out a bitter laugh. $10,000 to disappear from your life, or watch my family get deported. Not much of a choice. I closed my eyes, thinking about how Dad had played the concerned father so perfectly when I cried over David's sudden departure. How he bought me ice cream and told me that if David really loved me, he would have stayed and fought for us. He's done this to others, I said. For other guys over 5 years. You weren't alone in this. Christ. David was quiet for a moment. You know what the worst part is? I used that money to help my parents finally get their green cards. Your father's blood money literally saved my family. I've been living with that guilt for 3 years. David, I need to ask you something. I picked up the contract with Marcus's name on it. Would you be willing to go public with this? I'm planning to expose him, but I need proof it's a pattern, not just one payment. Public how? His 60th birthday party. Saturday night. 73 family members, including his partners from the law firm. I took a deep breath. I want to destroy him the same way he destroyed us. Another long pause. You want me to fly to Chicago to ruin your father's birthday party? I want you to help me tell the truth about who Richard Hartford really is. Alex. David's voice was careful. What happens after? You'll lose everything. Your inheritance, your family, your safety net. Are you prepared for that? I looked around my childhood bedroom, the canopy bed Dad had custom built when I turned 16, the bookshelf full of first editions he'd bought to encourage my reading, the framed photo of us at my college graduation where he looked so proud. Evidence of a loving father, or just more sophisticated manipulation? I'm prepared, I said. Are you? David was quiet for so long I thought he'd hung up. Finally, book me a flight. It's time your father faced some consequences. After we hung up, I stared at my phone screen, thumb hovering over Marcus's contact. David had been threatened and extorted. But Marcus had gotten $50,000 and used it to build his dream life in Portland. That conversation would be different. I called Marcus at 11:47 p.m. Friday night, exactly 12 hours before his birthday party would begin. I'd been staring at his number for hours, rehearsing what I'd say, but when he actually answered, hello, in that familiar voice that used to whisper good morning against my neck, every planned word evaporated. It's me, I said simply. Silence stretched between Chicago and Portland like a taut wire. I could hear music in the background, voices laughing. He was at a party. Of course he was. Marcus had always been social, the kind of person who collected friends like souvenirs. Alex. His voice went flat. How did you get this number? Same number you've had for 3 years, Marcus. I never deleted it. I was sitting on my bedroom floor, surrounded by evidence of his betrayal, but hearing his voice still made my chest tight. We need to talk. I don't think that's a good idea. We said everything we needed to say. Did we? Because I just learned some interesting things about our breakup. I picked up the payment contract, studying his signature. $50,000 interesting. The background noise on his end went quiet, like he'd stepped outside or into another room. I don't know what you're talking about. March 15, 2024. Payment agreement. Termination of relationship with Alexander Hartford. I read his own signature back to him. Relocation outside of Chicago metropolitan area within 30 days. Ring any bells? Marcus didn't speak for a long time. When he finally did, his voice was barely above a whisper. How did you find out? Does it matter? Anger was replacing the hurt now, hot and clean. What matters is that you took the money. $50,000 to walk away from me without even giving me a choice. Alex, it wasn't like that. Then what was it like? I was standing now, pacing the small space between my bed and closet. Explain to me how taking money from my father to break my heart wasn't exactly like that. Your father didn't just offer money, Marcus said, and something in his tone made me stop pacing. He showed up at the restaurant where I worked. Had done research on my family, knew about Mom's cancer, knew we were drowning in medical bills. But he also knew other things. My blood went cold. What other things? That DUI from when I was 19. The one that got expunged from my record. Marcus's voice was bitter now. Turns out expunged doesn't mean disappeared when your girlfriend's father has connections in the court system. He had photos of the police report, the original arrest record. Said it would be a shame if that information found its way to the state liquor board, considering I was trying to get my bartender's license. I sank back onto the floor. Just like with David. Just like all of them, probably. He said I could take the money and start fresh somewhere new, or I could stay and watch him destroy any chance I had at a real career. And watch my mother die because we couldn't afford her treatment. Marcus laughed, but it sounded broken. Some choice, right? You could have told me, I whispered. We could have figured something out together. With what? Your trust fund that Daddy controls? The family money he could cut off whenever he wanted? Marcus's voice cracked. Alex, I loved you. That's exactly why I couldn't let him destroy you too. So instead you let him destroy us. Yes. The admission hung between us like a confession. I let him destroy us to save us. And I've regretted it every single day for 6 months. I closed my eyes, thinking about the birthday party tomorrow night. About David flying in from San Francisco to face his demons. About the folder full of evidence that would obliterate my father's reputation and probably my relationship with my family forever. Marcus, I said slowly, what would you say if I told you I was going to make him pay for what he did? I'd say be careful. Men like your father don't go down without taking everyone else with them. And what if I told you I needed your help to do it? Another long pause. Then, I'd ask what time my flight should land. Marcus's flight landed at O'Hare at 3:17 p.m. on Saturday, 4 hours before the birthday party was set to begin. I picked him up in Mom's Mercedes. The irony of using Dad's money to fund my revenge mission wasn't lost on me, and we drove to a coffee shop in Evanston where no one from Dad's social circle would recognize us. He looked good. Better than good, actually. The constant exhaustion that had marked his last months in Chicago was gone, replaced by the confident posture of someone who'd found success. His hair was shorter, more professional, and he was wearing a jacket I didn't recognize, expensive looking, the kind of thing his Portland design business probably afforded him now. You look. I started, then stopped. What was I supposed to say? You look great for someone who sold our relationship? Different, he finished. I know. Portland's been good to me. So I saw. Nice apartment. Successful business. I couldn't keep the edge out of my voice. Funny how quickly things turned around after you got that initial investment. Marcus winced, stirring his coffee without drinking it. I know how it looks, Alex. But that money, I used most of it for Mom's treatments. The business loan was only $12,000. Most of it? I pulled out my phone, showing him the screenshots I'd taken of his company's incorporation documents. $47,000 initial investment. That leaves $3,000 for your mom's cancer treatments? His face flushed. The treatments were covered by insurance after all. We found out 2 weeks after I moved, but by then. He gestured helplessly. I was already gone. Already committed to staying away. So you kept the money. I built something with it. Marcus's voice rose, then he caught himself, looking around the half-empty coffee shop. I built the business we used to dream about. The one we planned together. Without me. Because of you. He reached across the table like he wanted to take my hand, then pulled back. Every logo I design, every brand I build, I think about what you would have contributed. The creative vision we shared. Alex, not a day goes by that I don't regret taking that money, but at least something good came from it. I wanted to stay angry. Anger was cleaner than the complicated mess of emotions his presence stirred up. But seeing him here, knowing he'd flown back to face my father despite having every reason to stay safely in Portland, was undermining my righteous fury. Tell me about the party, he said, changing the subject. What's the plan? I explained about David, about Janet's folder full of evidence, about my intention to expose Dad during his birthday toast when everyone would be watching and recording on their phones. Marcus listened without interrupting, his expression growing more troubled with each detail. You're going to detonate a nuclear bomb in the middle of your family, he said finally. My family deserves to know what kind of man they're celebrating. And after? When the dust settles and everyone's picking sides? Marcus leaned forward. Your mom, your aunts and uncles, your cousins, they're all going to be collateral damage. Are you prepared for that? I thought about Mom upstairs right now, probably doing last-minute touch-ups to her makeup, excited to celebrate the man she'd been married to for 26 years. About Cousin Sarah, who'd looked up to Dad since childhood. About Uncle James, who'd probably borrowed money from Dad more than once over the years. Are you trying to talk me out of this? I asked. I'm trying to make sure you understand what you're walking into. Marcus's dark eyes were serious, concerned. Your father destroyed our relationship, Alex, but destroying your entire family won't bring us back. This isn't about getting you back, I lied. This is about justice. Is it? Or is it about revenge? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed with a text from Mom, *sweetheart, where are you? The florist needs to talk to someone about the centerpiece height and your father is locked in his study practicing his speech. This party is in 3 hours, *. I have to go, I said, standing up. David's flight lands at 5. The party starts at 7:30. Marcus did too, and for a moment we just looked at each other across the small cafe table. 2 years of shared history, 6 months of heartbreak, and now this, standing on the precipice of mutual destruction. Alex, he said quietly. Whatever happens tonight, I want you to know, taking your father's money was the worst decision I ever made. Not because of what I lost, but because of what I became. I left him sitting there with his untouched coffee and drove home to help Mom terrorize the florist. The house was chaos when I walked in at 4:30. Caterers rushed between the kitchen and dining room carrying silver trays, while Mom directed traffic in her silk robe with curlers still in her hair. The florist, a harried woman named Carol, was in the middle of explaining why the centerpieces couldn't be lowered without completely rebuilding the arrangements. Alexandra, thank God, Mom grabbed my arm. Tell Carol that 18 inches is too tall. People won't be able to see each other across the table. I was about to mediate the great centerpiece crisis when I heard Dad's voice booming from his study. The door was cracked open, and he was practicing his speech again, the same one he gave every year about family being his greatest achievement. My beautiful wife Margaret, my brilliant daughter Alexandra, my brothers and their families, you are my legacy, my proudest accomplishment. His voice carried that politician's cadence he used for important occasions. Everything I've done, every decision I've made, has been to protect and provide for the people I love most. I felt sick. He actually believed it. In his twisted mind, bribing away my boyfriends wasn't manipulation, it was protection. 18 inches is standard for formal dining, Carol was saying, but I wasn't really listening anymore. My phone buzzed with a text from David, *, flight delayed 45 minutes. Landing at 5:30 now. Hope that doesn't mess up timing, *. Then another text, this one from an unknown number, *, this is Marcus. Left the coffee shop and checked into a hotel downtown. Send me the address when you're ready. We're really doing this, *. Alexandra? Mom was staring at me. The centerpieces? 16 inches, I said absently. Compromise. Carol huffed but nodded, gathering her scissors to start trimming stems. Mom beamed like I'd just negotiated world peace. You're such a natural at this, sweetheart. You get it from your father, he always finds the perfect solution to every problem. If she only knew. I escaped upstairs to shower and change, passing Dad's study where he was still rehearsing. Through the crack in the door, I could see him standing in front of his wall of legal awards and family photos, gesturing grandly at his reflection in the dark window. Some men measure success by money or power, he was saying to his imaginary audience. I measure it by the happiness and security of my family. There is no price I wouldn't pay, no sacrifice I wouldn't make, to ensure their well-being. No sacrifice except letting me make my own choices. No price except buying off every man I'd ever cared about. My phone rang as I was blow-drying my hair. Unknown Portland number. Alex, we have a problem. Marcus's voice was tight with panic. What now? I just got a call from your father. My blood turned to ice. What? He knows I'm here. Someone saw us at the coffee shop, probably one of his golf buddies or something. He called my hotel 20 minutes ago. Marcus sounded shaken. He wants to meet. Says if I show up tonight, he'll make sure the IRS takes a very close look at my business finances. Apparently starting a company with cash raises red flags. Of course. Dad wasn't just going to let his carefully constructed world crumble without a fight. Did he threaten David too? I don't know. I called to warn you, this might be bigger than we thought. Your father's had 6 months to prepare for the possibility that his payments would surface someday. Downstairs, I could hear guests starting to arrive early. Aunt Patricia's distinctive laugh echoed from the foyer, followed by Uncle Robert's booming voice asking about the bar setup. The party was starting, and my father was already 3 moves ahead. I hung up with Marcus and immediately called David, my hands shaking as I dialed. It went straight to voicemail. Then I tried again. Still voicemail. Shit. I was still in my towel, hair half-dried, while the sounds of Dad's birthday celebration grew louder downstairs. Through my bedroom window, I could see more cars pulling into our circular driveway. Uncle James's BMW. Cousin Sarah's Honda. The partners from Dad's law firm arriving in their matching black Mercedes sedans. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown Chicago number. *Alex, this is David. Can't talk right now. Your father's people are at my hotel. Lawyers. They have paperwork about some kind of immigration audit for my parents. Flying back to SF tonight. I'm sorry. I can't risk my family for this. Another text came in immediately after. Evidence folder is still good. But you're on your own now. I stared at the messages, watching my carefully planned revenge crumble in real time. Marcus was scared off by IRS threats. David was fleeing back to San Francisco. And downstairs, my father was probably greeting guests with that warm, paternal smile, completely confident that he'd neutralized every threat to his perfect reputation. Alexandra. Mom's voice carried up the stairs. People are asking for you. 5 minutes. I called back, my voice cracking slightly. I sat down hard on my bed, still clutching my phone. Janet's folder was on my nightstand, all that evidence, all those payment records. But without Marcus and David there to corroborate the story, to put human faces on Dad's victims, it was just paperwork. He could spin it as business transactions, misunderstandings, anything. My father had outmaneuvered me before I'd even made my first move. But then I thought about something Marcus had said at the coffee shop. Not a day goes by that I don't regret taking that money. And David's voice on the phone. I've been carrying guilt about this for years. Dad might have scared them away from attending tonight, but the guilt was still there. The shame of what they'd been forced to do. And if there were 4 other guys over the past 5 years. I grabbed my laptop and opened Facebook, searching through my old photos for the guys Janet had identified. Tommy Morrison, found him in Seattle, working as a high school principal. His profile was mostly private, but his relationship status said single. Jake Rodriguez was in Denver, recently divorced according to a post from 3 months ago. I started typing messages. Tommy, this is Alex Hartford. I know what my father paid you to leave Chicago 5 years ago. I'm exposing him tonight and I need your help. Even if you can't be here in person, I need you to go on record. Jake, you probably don't want to hear from me, but I found out about the $25,000 and the principal recommendation. My dad has been doing this to multiple guys. Will you help me stop him? I sent similar messages to the other 2 names in Janet's folder, then sat back and waited. Outside my window, the valet service Dad had hired was parking cars with military precision. The party was in full swing. My phone started buzzing almost immediately. Tommy, from Seattle, *, holy shit, Alex. I wondered if you'd ever find out. He said he had dirt on my student loan defaults. I've felt sick about it for years, Jake, from Denver, *, your father cost me my marriage. My wife never understood why I suddenly wanted to move to Colorado. Yes, I'll help. What do you need, *? Then a third response from someone named Eric Chin, David's younger brother, *, David told me what happened tonight. Dad's immigration lawyer says the audit threat is mostly bluff, but David's too scared to risk it. I'm not. I'm in Chicago for work anyway. Can be there in an hour, *. The bedroom door opened and Mom peeked in, already dressed in her navy cocktail dress and grandmother's pearls. Sweetheart, what's taking so long? Your father's been asking for you, and the photographer wants to get some family shots before dinner. I looked at her, really looked at her. In 2 hours, I was going to destroy her marriage, her image of the man she'd loved for over 2 decades. She was going to learn that her husband was a manipulative control freak who'd been systematically sabotaging their daughter's happiness for years. But she deserved to know the truth. I'll be right down, Mom. Just finishing my makeup. She smiled and closed the door. I turned back to my phone, which was now buzzing with responses from 3 more guys whose lives my father had derailed. Men who'd been carrying shame and regret for years, thinking they were alone in what they'd experienced. They weren't alone anymore. And neither was I. I spent 20 minutes in the bathroom staring at my reflection, trying to build up the courage to go downstairs. The woman looking back at me seemed like a stranger, same blonde hair Dad always said reminded him of his mother, same blue eyes that had gotten me out of trouble countless times growing up, but something fundamental had shifted. The naive girl who trusted her father implicitly was gone, replaced by someone harder. Someone willing to burn everything down for the truth. My phone kept buzzing with messages. Eric Chen had arrived and was waiting in the hotel lobby across the street. Tommy in Seattle had found his old text messages from the week he'd abruptly left Chicago, including one where he tried to explain to his then-girlfriend why he was pursuing new opportunities that had come up suddenly. Jake in Denver was scanning the original principal recommendation letter Dad had written for him, complete with a handwritten note about fresh starts being good for everyone involved. The evidence was mounting, even without Marcus and David. But it was the message from Eric that made my hands shake. Found something else. David kept copies of everything from that night your dad cornered him. Bank records, recorded phone calls, even a photo he secretly took of your father's business card when he left it on the table. David's too scared to use it, but I'm not. This man destroyed my brother's relationship and threatened my family. Time for consequences. Recorded phone calls. My father's voice, caught making his threats and bribes. That was the missing piece, not just payment records that could be explained away, but actual evidence of his extortion tactics. Alexandra Mary Hartford. Mom's voice carried up the stairs with that particular tone that meant business. The Kowalskis are asking for you, and your father wants to do the champagne toast in 15 minutes. 15 minutes. I grabbed Janet's folder, stuffed it into my purse along with my phone, and took one last look around my childhood bedroom. The princess canopy bed, the bookshelf full of Nancy Drew mysteries Dad used to read to me, the framed photo of us at my high school graduation where he'd whispered that I was his greatest pride and joy. All of it was about to become evidence of a lie. The party was in full swing when I finally made it downstairs. The dining room had been transformed into something from a magazine, crystal chandeliers casting warm light over tables draped in cream linens, those controversial 16-inch centerpieces creating perfect intimate conversation spaces. 73 of Chicago's legal and social elite mingled with champagne glasses, their laughter mixing with the string quartet Dad had hired for the occasion. He spotted me immediately from across the room, his face lighting up with that proud father expression I'd seen 1,000 times. He was holding court near the fireplace with his law partners, probably telling them about my art degree and how he'd always supported his daughter's creative pursuits, conveniently omitting how he'd spent years eliminating anyone who might actually support those pursuits with me. "There's my beautiful daughter." Dad excused himself from his conversation and crossed the room, pulling me into a hug that smelled like his expensive cologne and champagne. "I was starting to worry you were going to miss my big moment." "Wouldn't miss it for the world, Dad." I hugged him back, memorizing the feeling because I knew it would be the last time. "Looking forward to your speech." His eyes sparkled with anticipation. "I think people are really going to be moved by what I have to say about family loyalty tonight." Family loyalty. The irony was so thick I could choke on it. My phone buzzed against my purse. Eric Chen, probably updating me on his location. The recorded phone calls were waiting on his device, ready to play for 73 witnesses who thought they were here to celebrate a loving patriarch. Dad raised his champagne glass toward the room. "Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention." This was it. The moment of no return. The room quieted as Dad tapped his champagne flute with a silver spoon, that familiar ritual from every family gathering I'd ever attended. 73 faces turned toward him expectantly, his law partners, our extended family, the country club friends who'd watched me grow up. All of them smiling, ready to toast the man they thought they knew. My phone vibrated against my purse. Eric Chen, asterisk in position outside. Audio files ready. Say the word, asterisk. Before we sit down to dinner, Dad began, his voice carrying that practiced courtroom authority. "I wanted to take a moment to thank you all for being here tonight." 60 years old, hard to believe how quickly time passes when you're surrounded by the people who matter most. Aunt Patricia beamed at him from near the piano. Uncle James raised his glass in a small salute. Mom stood beside the kitchen doorway, practically glowing with pride at her husband's words. "I've been blessed with an extraordinary family," Dad continued, his gaze finding me in the crowd. "My devoted wife Margaret, who's put up with my long hours and obsessive attention to detail for 26 years. Polite laughter rippled through the room. Mom actually blushed. "And my daughter Alexandra, who reminds me every day what really matters in this world. Her happiness, her future, her well-being, these are the things that drive every decision I make." My stomach churned. He was looking directly at me now, his expression so genuinely loving that for a split second I almost doubted what I'd found in his study. Almost convinced myself that the payment contracts were some kind of misunderstanding. Then my phone buzzed again. This time it was a group text that Eric had started with Tommy in Seattle and Jake in Denver. Asterisk recording is 4 minutes long. "Your father's voice is crystal clear. He threatens David's family, mentions specific IC contacts by name, then offers them money as a solution that benefits everyone. It's damning, asterisk." Tommy responded immediately, asterisk play it. "This bastard needs to face what he's done, asterisk." Jake, asterisk I lost my wife because of him. "Burn it all down, Alex, asterisk." Dad was still talking, warming up to the emotional crescendo I'd heard him practice a dozen times. Some men my age start to wonder about their legacy, about what they'll leave behind. I have no such doubts. My legacy is standing right here in this room, a family that trusts me, that knows I would do anything to protect them from harm. Anything to protect them, the words hit me like a physical blow. In his twisted mind, that's exactly what he'd been doing. Protecting me from the wrong kind of men, the unsuitable choices, the relationships that didn't fit his vision of my perfect life. "There is no sacrifice too great," Dad's voice was growing stronger now, more passionate, "no price too high, no action I wouldn't take to ensure that the people I love are safe, secure, and surrounded by those who truly deserve their trust." The room was completely silent now, hanging on every word. I could see tears in Mom's eyes, proud smiles on my cousins' faces. They believed every word. They had no idea they were listening to the philosophy that had justified years of manipulation and control. My finger hovered over Eric's contact. One call, and his voice recordings would pipe through the house's Bluetooth sound system. Dad had insisted on the latest technology for entertaining. One call, and everyone would hear Richard Hartford's true voice, the one that made threats about immigration raids and IRS audits. The one that reduced human relationships to dollar amounts and strategic eliminations. Dad raised his champagne glass higher. "So here's to family loyalty, to the bonds that can't be broken, and to the absolute certainty that love will always triumph over." I made the call. Eric answered on the first ring. "You sure about this, Alex?" "Do it," I whispered. The recording started playing through the house speakers before Dad could finish his sentence. The first few seconds were just static, and Dad looked confused, glancing toward the speakers with mild annoyance. But then his own voice filled the dining room, crystal clear and unmistakably threatening. "Asterisk Mr. Chen, I think we both know why I'm here. Your family's immigration status is precarious, isn't it? Pending applications can be so unpredictable." Asterisk. The color drained from Dad's face. His champagne glass slipped from his fingers, shattering against the hardwood floor in a spray of crystal and golden liquid. The room had gone dead silent except for the recording playing from every speaker in the house. "I don't understand," came David's voice, tinny but audible. Asterisk, what does my family have to do with Alexandra? Asterisk. Asterisk everything and nothing. You're going to end your relationship with my daughter, Mr. Chen. Tonight. And then you're going to disappear from Chicago permanently. Asterisk. Aunt Patricia's hand flew to her mouth. Uncle James's face had gone slack with shock. Mom was staring at Dad like she'd never seen him before, her proud smile crumbling into something hollow and confused. "Sir, I love your daughter." Asterisk love? Asterisk Dad's recorded laugh was cruel, nothing like the warm chuckle I'd grown up hearing. Asterisk Mr. Chen, you work in a cubicle making $38,000 a year. Alexander's trust fund is worth more than you'll earn in a lifetime. This isn't love, it's opportunism. Asterisk. I watched Dad frantically patting his pockets for his phone, probably trying to figure out how to stop the playback. But Eric had done his homework. The recording was streaming from an external source, not connected to the house's system in any way Dad could control. I would never use Alexander for money. Asterisk, of course she wouldn't. Because you're going to take my money instead. $50,000, Mr. Chin. More than you make in a year, just to walk away. Consider it a generous severance package. Asterisk. The number hit the room like a physical blow. $50,000. I heard someone gasp, maybe cousin Sarah, and saw several of Dad's law partners exchanging sharp glances. This wasn't just family drama anymore, this was potential legal exposure. Asterisk, and if I refuse? Asterisk. Asterisk, then your family's pending visa extensions get flagged for additional review. I have friends at IC, Mr. Chin. Good friends who are very thorough in their investigations. Very thorough. Do you understand what I'm telling you? Asterisk. Mom had gone completely white. She was gripping the back of a chair so hard her knuckles had turned bloodless, staring at her husband like he was a stranger who'd broken into her house wearing Dad's face. The recording continued with David's obvious distress, his pleas for Dad to reconsider, his desperate attempt to negotiate some kind of compromise. But Dad's voice remained cold and transactional throughout, discussing the destruction of my relationship like it was a business merger. Asterisk, you have 48 hours to end things with Alexandra convincingly. Make her believe it's her idea if possible, she's always been too trusting for her own good. The money will be transferred once you provide proof of relocation outside the Chicago metropolitan area. Asterisk. That last line broke something in me. Too trusting for her own good, he'd weaponized my faith in him, used my love as a tool for manipulation. The recording finally ended, leaving the dining room in absolute silence except for the soft music from the string quartet, who had kept playing throughout like nothing had happened. Dad stood frozen in the center of the room, surrounded by the wreckage of his reputation. His mouth was opening and closing soundlessly, like a fish gasping for air. Then Mom spoke, her voice barely above a whisper but carrying clearly in the stunned quiet. Richard. What have you done? The silence stretched for what felt like hours but was probably only seconds. Dad opened his mouth, then closed it, then opened it again like he was trying to remember how to form words. The string quartet had finally stopped playing, their confused faces visible through the archway to the living room. Dad's voice came out as a croak. He cleared his throat and tried again, louder this time, addressing the room like he was making a closing argument. That recording is taken completely out of context. David Chen was attempting to extort money from our family, and I was simply... bullshit. The word came out of my mouth before I could stop it, cutting through his explanation like a knife. Every head in the room turned toward me. Complete bullshit, Dad. I pulled out my phone and opened the group chat Eric had created. Tommy Morrison in Seattle, Jake Rodriguez in Denver, Michael Kim in Phoenix, and James Liu in Austin all want to say hello. I held up the phone so the room could see the active video call Eric had started. Boys, meet my father's birthday party. 4 faces appeared on my screen, the men my father had systematically removed from my life over the past 5 years. Behind them, I could see Eric Chen holding his recording equipment, David's brother who'd had the courage his sibling couldn't muster. Richard Hartford, Tommy's voice came through crystal clear. You remember me, right? Art teacher, dated your daughter in college? You offered me 15 grand to take that job in Europe and disappear. Mom's legs gave out. She sank into the nearest chair, her face gray. Alexandra, what is this? What's happening? What's happening, Mom, is that Dad has been paying off my boyfriends for 5 years. I turned to face the room, my voice carrying despite the trembling in my hands. Every relationship that lasted more than 3 months, every guy who started talking about a future with me, Dad made them disappear. Jake's voice came from the phone, he knew I was going through a rough divorce, knew I needed money for legal fees. But the principal job recommendation came with strings attached, leave Chicago immediately and never contact Alexandra again. Uncle James stepped forward, his face flushed with anger. Richard, tell me this is some kind of misunderstanding. Tell me you didn't actually. James, you don't understand the pressure I've been under. Dad's composure was cracking, revealing something desperate underneath. Alexandra is trusting, naive. These men were using her, manipulating her feelings to get access to our family's resources. I was protecting her from fortune hunters and social climbers. By committing extortion? The voice belonged to Harrison Mills, Dad's senior law partner. His face had gone stone cold. Richard, do you have any idea what you just admitted to in front of 70 witnesses? Some of whom are federal judges? That's when it hit me. Judge Patricia Kowalski was standing 3 feet away, her expression shifting from family friend to federal prosecutor. District Attorney Michael Torres was by the bar, already whispering urgently to his wife. Dad hadn't just confessed to his family, he'd confessed to half of Chicago's legal establishment. This is a private family matter, Dad said, but his voice had lost all authority. A misunderstanding that got blown out of proportion. Eric's voice came through the phone speakers. Mr. Hartford, this is Eric Chen, David's brother. I'm an attorney with the ACLU. What you did to my family constitutes criminal extortion under federal law. The immigration threats alone carry a 5-year minimum sentence. Mom finally found her voice. How many, Richard? How many boys did you pay off? The room waited for his answer. I could hear the caterers whispering in the kitchen, probably wondering if they should keep preparing dinner. The absurdity of it struck me, 73 people dressed in cocktail attire, surrounded by birthday decorations, watching a man's life implode in real time. 7, I answered when Dad couldn't. 7 relationships over 5 years. $147,000 total, plus legal fees, job recommendations, and threats against their families. Mom stood up slowly, her pearl necklace catching the light from the crystal chandelier Dad had bought her for their 20th anniversary. Get out, she whispered. Get out, Mom repeated, louder this time. Her voice was steady now, ice cold in a way I'd never heard before. Get out of my house, Richard. Margaret, please. Dad took a step toward her, his hands outstretched. You have to understand, I did this for our family. For Alexandra's future. Don't you dare. Mom backed away from him like he was diseased. Don't you dare pretend this was about love. This was about control. This was about playing God with our daughter's life. The video call was still active on my phone. Tommy's face filled the screen as he leaned closer to his camera. Mrs. Hartford, I'm sorry you had to find out this way. But your husband didn't just pay us off, he researched our weaknesses first. My student loans, Jake's divorce, Michael's work visa status. He knew exactly how to hurt us. The man I married wouldn't have done this, Mom said, still staring at Dad. 26 years of marriage crumbling in real time. The man I married believed in honesty, in letting people make their own choices. I am the same man. Dad's voice cracked. Everything I did was to protect Alexandra from making mistakes that would ruin her life. These men were beneath her, Margaret. You know they were. That broke something in Uncle James. He stepped forward, his face flushed with rage. Beneath her? Richard, you arrogant son of a bitch. You decided who was worthy of your daughter's love based on their bank accounts? James, you don't understand the pressures. I understand that you've been lying to this family for years. James gestured around the room. How many family dinners did we sit through where you played the concerned father, worried about Alexandra's breakups? How many times did we comfort her while you sat there knowing exactly why these men disappeared? I remember those dinners. Dad bringing me ice cream after David's sudden transfer. His shoulder to cry on when Marcus broke up with me. The way he'd held me while I sobbed, whispering that any man who truly loved me would fight for our relationship. He'd orchestrated my pain and then comforted me through it. The cruelty was breathtaking. There's more, Eric's voice came through the phone speaker. David kept detailed records of everything. Bank transfers, email communications, even photos of the documents your father showed him about ICE investigations. We have enough evidence to file federal charges. Harrison Mills stepped forward, his expression grim. Richard, as your law partner and friend, I'm advising you to stop talking immediately. Anything else you say can be used against you in court. Court? Dad looked genuinely shocked, like the possibility of consequences had never occurred to him. Harrison, this is a family matter. A private disagreement. This is criminal extortion, immigration fraud, and witness intimidation. District Attorney Torres had his phone out, probably already calling his office. In front of 73 witnesses, including 2 federal judges and the mayor of Evanston. The room was starting to buzz with whispered conversations. I could see people pulling out their phones, some probably calling lawyers, others likely spreading the news to contacts who weren't here. Dad's reputation wasn't just destroyed in this room, it was about to become Chicago legal gossip within the hour. Mom walked over to the mantelpiece and picked up their wedding photo, the one from 1998 where they looked so young and hopeful. Margaret, don't do anything rash, Dad pleaded. We can work through this. Marriage counseling, therapy, whatever you need. She looked at the photo for a long moment, then at him. 26 years, Richard. 26 years I've been married to a stranger. Then she dropped the frame. It shattered against the hardwood floor, glass scattering across the expensive Persian rug, their smiling faces now fractured beyond repair. The sound of the wedding photo hitting the floor seemed to break whatever spell had held the room frozen. Suddenly everyone was moving at once, some guests heading for the door, others pulling out phones, a few clustering around Mom to offer support. The careful choreography of Dad's perfect birthday party dissolved into chaos. Ladies and gentlemen, Harrison Mills announced in his courtroom voice, I think it's best if we all. He was interrupted by the front door chiming. Through the foyer, I could see Marcus walking in, still wearing his expensive Portland jacket but looking like he'd rather be anywhere else in the world. Dad's face went from pale to purple. You're supposed to be on a plane back to Oregon. Change of plans, Marcus said, stepping into the dining room. His eyes found mine across the crowd. Turns out I'm tired of being afraid of you, Mr. Hartford. Marcus, don't. I moved toward him, but Uncle James caught my arm. Let him talk, Alexandra. Let them all talk. Marcus pulled out his phone, and I realized he'd been recording. I'd been outside for 20 minutes, streaming everything to Instagram Live. 1,200 people just watched you threaten immigration raids and bribe federal witnesses. He held up the screen showing comments flooding in. Including your golf buddy Senator Morrison, who's apparently deeply concerned about these allegations. The blood drained from Dad's face completely. Senator Morrison, Tommy's uncle, the one who'd probably seen us at the coffee shop and reported back. The same senator who chaired the Judiciary Committee overseeing federal prosecutor appointments. You live-streamed my private family gathering? Dad's voice rose to something approaching a shriek. I live-streamed a confession to multiple federal crimes, Marcus corrected. There's a difference. My phone started buzzing incessantly. Text messages, missed calls, Instagram notifications. The story was spreading beyond the room, beyond Chicago. I opened Twitter and searched Dad's name. Hashtag Richard Hartford was already trending, with clips from Marcus's livestream being shared thousands of times. Breaking, prominent Chicago attorney caught on tape bribing daughter's boyfriends. Listen to this recording of Richard Hartford threatening immigrant family. $147,000 to control his daughter's love life, privilege at its finest. Mom sank back into her chair, staring at her shattered wedding photo. The whole world is going to know. Our neighbors, my book club, the charity boards. Mom. I knelt beside her chair. I'm sorry. I know this isn't how you wanted to find out. She looked at me with eyes full of tears. How long have you known? 1 week. I found the payment records in his study. A week. She absorbed this, then looked across the room at Dad, who was now huddled with Harrison Mills and 2 other law partners. You've known for a week that my husband destroyed your happiness, and you've been planning this revenge ever since. It wasn't a question. Yes. Mom nodded slowly. Good. He deserved everything he just got. The doorbell chimed again. Through the window, I could see news vans pulling up outside. Someone, probably multiple someones, had tipped off the media. District Attorney Torres finished his phone call and approached Dad's huddle of lawyers. Richard, I'm going to need you to come downtown for questioning. Voluntarily, for now, but that could change very quickly. Michael, surely we can handle this quietly. There's nothing quiet about this anymore. Torres gestured toward the window, where camera crews were setting up on our front lawn. Channel 7 is calling it the birthday party confession. This is national news now. Dad looked out the window at the growing media circus, then back at the ruins of his carefully constructed life. His law partners were already distancing themselves, literally stepping away from him. His family stared at him like he was a stranger. His wife sat surrounded by broken glass and broken dreams. And I realized that despite everything, despite the satisfaction of watching him face consequences, despite the vindication of seeing people believe the truth, I felt empty. This wasn't justice. This was just destruction. But it was too late to take any of it back. 6 months later, I stood in the lobby of the federal courthouse in downtown Chicago, watching my father's sentencing through the live stream on my phone. He pled guilty to 7 counts of extortion, 2 counts of immigration fraud, and 1 count of witness intimidation. The judge had just sentenced him to 4 years in federal prison. How do you feel? The reporter's microphone appeared in my face as I stepped outside. I'd become something of a local celebrity, the daughter who'd exposed Chicago's most controlling father at his own birthday party. I feel free, I said, and meant it. The aftermath had been brutal but necessary. Dad's law firm had dissolved within 2 weeks of the party. Mom had filed for divorce and moved in with Aunt Patricia while she figured out her next steps. The family money was tied up in legal proceedings, but I'd gotten a job at a small gallery in Wicker Park and was sharing an apartment with 2 roommates who didn't care about my trust fund or my father's crimes. Marcus had flown back to Portland after the party, but we'd been texting regularly. Carefully. Both of us damaged in different ways, both trying to figure out who we were without my father's manipulation defining our choices. Alex? I turned to see David Chin walking toward me, flanked by his brother Eric. We wanted to thank you. David looked different, lighter somehow. The guilt that had weighed him down for 3 years was finally gone, replaced by something that looked like peace. My parents got their citizenship last month, he continued. The lawyer said the publicity around your father's case actually helped expedite their application. Apparently ICE wanted to distance themselves from anything connected to Richard Hartford. I hugged him, this man whose relationship with me had been destroyed by threats against his family. I'm sorry it took me so long to find out. You were 21 and in love, Eric said. You couldn't have known what he was capable of. As they walked away, my phone buzzed with a text from Marcus, * saw the news. Justice served. Coffee when you're ready, *. Not if I was ready. When like he knew I'd eventually want to try again, to see if what we'd had was real or just another casualty of my father's war against my autonomy. I typed back, * maybe. But this time we do it right. No family money, no pressure, no shortcuts. Just us figuring it out, *. His response came immediately, wouldn't want it any other way. Mom appeared beside me, looking younger than she had in years. The divorce had been finalized last week, and she decided to go back to school for social work. Helping families, she'd told me. Real help, not whatever your father thought he was doing. Ready to go home, she asked. I looked back at the courthouse where my father would spend the next 4 years thinking about the price of control. Then at the city skyline, where somewhere out there were 7 men who could finally stop looking over their shoulders. Yeah, I said. I'm ready. As we walked to Mom's car, a modest Honda she'd bought with her own money from selling her jewelry, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years, the simple freedom of not knowing what came next. My father had spent 5 years orchestrating my love life, and 6 months ago I'd spent one perfect evening orchestrating his destruction. But now, for the first time since I was 19, my future was completely my own to write. It was terrifying. It was perfect.